Hey guys, my name is Rye. Today I wanted to walk you through how I did my plus 20 Darkflame Cleft on my Vengeance Demon Hunter. This is the third or fourth time I've timed this key, but it is my most frequent requested dungeon to ask for when having a walkthrough, specifically how I deal with some of the more complicated pulls like the minecart area. In this dungeon, I didn't cheat once, meaning I kept my cheat death for the entire dungeon, even doing the minecart pull in one. I'm going to show you how to do every gather, what I like about my routes, some of the things I could change, and what you need to do to get through this pretty overwhelming dungeon. I would say from a difficulty level, this is about middle of the pack. I think there's a lot of tank damage in here, but a lot of what you do as a tank is your control and your pacing. So I'm going to show you here what I do as on this first labor. I hunt, I throw glaive, and I get in here with a fire sigil and hit that fell dev. The reason why I hit so many buttons here is I want my druid to be able to multi-dot as much as he can when getting into this lust bowl. Once I pull the mole herd, I am hitting Fiery Brand, calling for Vortex, using that second fire sigil, hitting that Elysian Decree, and now I'm completely stacked up. I do want to be hitting the Overseer, and although I've used that first Reaver's Glaive already on air, what I think is more important is getting off that threat. As you can see already, I have a new Reaver's Glaive applied to my targets. One quick trick too is you can use Sigil of Misery to stop the knockback on these mobs. One thing that I did notice, I did lose my glaive there, which didn't matter as long as I throw the hunt, but your imperative should be trying to use Sigil of Chains and Misery to making sure that you can prevent these Overseer knockbacks. If you are in Discord communication, Frost Nova does work from Mage, Vortex does work from Druid, and as well, like I said, Sigil of Misery or Landslide from Evokers all can prevent you from getting all these mobs displaced. Once these mobs are all over the place, you're going to have a really tough time getting them back together and gathering them, and you're going to be going through hell. I do pull this double Overseer together, and I am going to be rolling Fiery Brand. When these mobs are all together, one thing that I would note is to make sure that you don't disrespect the laborers. The bleed can actually be pretty nasty, and I think everybody just thinks that these are just trash mobs, so they won't really do anything to you, but you know, keeping the proper planning coordination with your team on how you're going to prevent the knockbacks and how you're going to roll defensives as you're pulling laborers is going to help you a ton. Surprisingly enough, I've seen a lot of tanks just come in here and die on this pull. They'll either proc cheat because they're greedy, they won't be clearing their stacks, or they'll have mobs all over the room and their team will be dying to wick lighter bolts or other things. I did commit my health bot there as I wanted to get stable and pull some more of these laborers. Overall, I will be dragging these mobs back into here, and our DK did proxy the other side. I didn't want that as it ends up being a little bit scary for me to have both sides without a defensive run-in, but I do hit that Chaos Nova. I'm rolling my regular rotation, which is keeping my Immora up, keeping my Sigil down, and keeping at least one charge of Fracture on cooldown. This next pull, I'm going to be grabbing this wick lighter, this mole herd, and these two pack moles, and I'm going to be dragging them around the corner. I did change my route and this pull a little bit here, and the reason why is I want that extra mole herd before the boss. Grabbing one extra mob in this area, which is specifically this mole herd, is going to have me take one less creeper before the boss, and as well, I kind of like being able to LOS these all around the corner and bring some of these into boss with Bloodlust. As you might have noticed by now, we actually haven't hit Bloodlust yet in this dungeon, and we're going to be saving it for the first boss. The reason why we save it for the first boss, at least in my best estimate of how I like to do it, is this boss and the Candleking are your only two failure points of the dungeon. There's a binary check on this boss which involves you either killing or not killing the minecart, and I'm sure by this point in the season some of you have been in maybe a run, maybe in a hierarchy that you've tried, where either your DPS have not saved damage for them or you've missed the check on the minecart. This is key ending, and for whatever reason, if you do decide to pull trash in here, it can also be pretty deadly. So with this in mind, we do kill off these lowly mole herds, the wick lighter, and we'll be going into boss. We are waiting on Arcane Mage CDs. As I go, I pull the boss with Reaver's Glaive, and I immediately always brand him on pull. This is another failure point I do see some tanks struggle with, is for some reason that this first Rockbuster comes in and tanks think that they don't need to press anything. However, the problem is that you have no frailty, you have no resource kind of rolling, and you don't have anything kind of up for that first Rockbiter. As this cart lands here, you'll see that right away I'm in it, I'm throwing my glaive at it, I'm fracturing, I'm soul cleaving it, and I'm making sure I do as much damage as a tank, and most importantly, I'm enabling my DPS. Getting the boss over to the cart immediately is your imperative, and you should not be kind of dilly-dallying on this one. If your cart can't die to Arcane Mage Cleave, it's going to take a lot less damage, and more importantly too, classes like your Boomkin are going to be cleaving from the boss to the minecarts. Your DK is going to be able to death coil the cart and hopefully the boss, and you want to be able to use everything you can to kill off this minecart. Remember, if this doesn't die, you will just lose the key, so making sure that you save things like Hunt if you need to, saving that Reaver's Glaive, potting this boss, and if you really want to, use Bloodlust to make sure that your comp can get through it. One little trick I do on this fight a lot is I always have our DPS and our healer bait into these pillars on the sides of the room. When they can do that, I can always Sigil of Chains when it's off cooldown to make sure that I'm clearing a bunch of these laborers out so my healer isn't stressed out. As this new cart comes out, you can see that right now I do have that glaive banked. I do end up throwing it though, as we do have Arcane Surge on this cart. Remember, I'm watching very carefully to what happens with my DPS CDs, and if my Arcane Mage ever has Surge, you can see that this cart is just getting melted. I don't have to do anything to it, and as well, I can just go back to hitting the boss. Anytime we don't have Arcane Mage CDs, we don't have Incarnation, or we don't have Unholy Frenzy from our Death Knights, I am making sure I either save that Hunt, that Glaive, or whatever damage I can store on my Vengeance Demon Hunter, as all damage does matter. This cart does spawn close, we don't have a lot of damage, I Hunt, I Glaive, I Fracture, I Soul Cleave, and I'm putting as much damage into this cart as I can to make sure that we beat the binary check of this encounter. I do get that chains off, and I get a huge laborer clear right before this boss is going to die. I think it's a really underrated trick that I can show you, and you've probably seen me do it twice now, but using that Sigil of Chains onto a close bait and clearing out all those menial laborers is massive for your healer and your team's survivability. I really wouldn't kind of underestimate how powerful it is to kind of try to clear some of these out, so making sure you can when you have the ability to should be also your kind of short imperative. As this last minecart comes out, I do call that we are going to be committing to the boss. We do hit Waxbeard here, and he does go down. Down here, I have assigned our kicks. I will not be responsible for kicking these Blazing Fiends, but I want to show you really quickly how you gather this entire room and you don't cheat. I would really recommend not only throw glaving the pack on the left, but also hitting it once or twice for a little bit of threat. You should allow your Boomkin to multi-dot a little bit here, as he wants to be set up when things are gathered, and I really don't like when tanks go in here, they hit a throw glaive, or they just, hit the mob once, and then the mob's running all over the place. Take the 3 seconds and go hit these mobs. Once you're gathered, you're going to be saving your firebrand for that last tick of the candle flame, and you can use Spell Dev early if you'd like to. I'd really also recommend not using meta early here and using it late, as you're going to want it to be able to maximize your uptime and your threat on this pull. See here that I do commit that sigil, I do throw that glaive, and I am Fel Dev in the middle of the room. I throw a soft glaive here, I tag with Fiery Brand on this last wandering candle, and now that you can see, really importantly, all these mobs are tagged and going to group up here. I do have 2 fiery sigils. I do have my meta, I do have my hunts, and I do have my Elysian Decree, which means my threat is going to be awesome on this pull once all the mobs are in. I drop my first Sigil of Flames here, I drop my Decree as Brand is rolling on all my targets and increasing the fire damage they take. I Sigil of Chains to kind of put a slow on them, and as well I'm hitting one of these wandering candles. You should be making sure you're hitting a candle if you can, and like I said, I do change all my player names to priority mobs to the color orange. That's because I do know my Arcane Mage is going to be hitting a candle, I do know my Death Knight and my Boomy are also going to be cleaving off these candles, and I want to make sure I'll be optimizing my threats. In addition to this is the priority target, which means we want these to die fast, as they're going to be alive at the end of the pull if we don't hit them. If they're alive at the end of the pull, this pull is just going to take longer, and your tank damage on these priority pulls does matter. As you can see here, I'm trying to kite in a circle which is conducive of my DPS being able to understand and predict where I'm going. I'm taking these candles over the train tracks and trying very carefully not to get caught, rolling my Fiery Brand, rolling my meta, and as well, once I'm out of buttons, going back to a little bit of a kite pattern. You should be giving yourself as much distance as possible on these task workers, as the bonk hitbox is way bigger than it shows. I have cheated here in the past just to bonk because you get stunned and unable to move, but you can stun these things if you want to commit Chaos Nova. However, I would recommend not doing them at all at the end of the bowl, as you're going to want all your stops available to deal with the Candle Room. I do also see tanks cheat a lot in this room and struggle with this gather, and I'm going to show you 3 cool tricks about how to do this room very easily. I would really recommend having Feldev available for the gather. You're going to want 1 Empowered Glaive, and you're going to want all of your CC, including Chains, Misery, Nova, and Silence. The goal is to get these things all synced up, because when you do, if you're able to get the Sigil of Silence on the synced up cast, it's going to lock them out for 24 seconds. As you walk in here, you're going to watch me go and tag the farthest mob available in the back first. I'm going to throw Glaive the second farthest one, and I'm immediately going to go into Feldev. Once these things get together, I am rolling my Fire Sigil. I'm going to hit my Nova. I'm going to hit my Misery after my Chains to make sure they're all synced. And I'm going to Sigil of Silence. The reason why I like to do this all solo is I don't trust my team a lot, and I want to be able to completely rely on my stops independent of anybody else's to make sure these are synced up. I always tell my teams early, hey, if we haven't played together, let me go do all these stops first. I don't want you to beam early. That way it is in all the power of me, and if I mess up, that is on my prerogative and I can own that later. However, if I do commit Silent Sigil early and somebody else hits a CC or any sort of other button, then we're going to be in trouble and we're going to be out of stops. That's why if you just tell your team to trust you, you can handle all of it on your own and not have any problems at all. I am going to be pulling these 3 mobs into the boss, which are going to be these 2 Blazing Fiends and this Wick Lighter, and the reason why I'm going to be doing that is to give my Arcane Mage funnel. As these mobs come in here, I am going to be tagging the boss, coming in here, and we're going to be caging one of these Wick Lighters as we go. There's nothing too important about Blazikon as I kind of get into this encounter. I'm just going to be following my same single target rotation. Once these mobs come in, I will be responsible for a kick and a stop on the Wick Lighter, but I do want to make sure that once these are in, I'm tagging them and I'm building enough threats so that my DPS can cleave them down. Luckily, I do have Fiery Brand rolling, and I would recommend that as these mobs come in, this is probably a good time to roll Fiery Brand and meta, as there's no other real important time to do so. I would still say as you're tanking even easy bosses, I've seen some Vengeance Demon Hunters just absolutely ego the heck out of regular melee hits because they think they're better than pressing their Fiery Brand or their meta. But remember, meta and Fiery Brand are both DPS increases, and you should be using them accordingly on bosses as DPS cooldowns if you don't need them for survivability. As these 2 Blazing Fiends go down, this Wick Lighter is about to walk into the room, and we're going to be following a regular kick rotation on it. From a team perspective, my team's doing the same thing here, which is alternating defensive capabilities and making sure that we clear statues. As I silence in this Wick Lighter, now I have enabled my team to have 3 mobs on this boss for funnel, which is going to speed up our boss kill time a little bit from our Arcane Mage, and as well make him very happy. Remember, when playing with an Arcane Mage, anytime you can get funnel for them, they're going to drastically increase their single target damage, as all their boss damage is through that priority function. From here on out, there's nothing too interesting about Blazikon, so I'm going to kind of stop my narrative there for a little bit and kind of just chat a little bit about some tips and tricks about this dungeon. I'd say you can definitely play a Spirit Bomb build in here if you wanted to, but I've still had ample success with just running that no bomb Soul Cleave build, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. I think overall, Vengeance is actually pretty easy once you get it down, and by playing no bomb, you actually simplify the entire spec a lot. All you're really doing is building souls, relying on those meta procs a little bit, and rotating your defensives. I think a common misconception still about Vengeance is this, like, hey, if you're not playing bomb, how are you going to build like massive AoE threats, massive AoE like frailty? And I'm just going to straight up tell you it's all fake. If you want to play bomb, you should be playing bomb because you think it's good in a dungeon, or like you have and maybe never played Soul Cleave. But at that point, just learn how to play Soul Cleave. I think you're going to do more damage being able to maximize your sigils with Soul Cleave. You're going to have a better time on a lot of bosses, and you're going to free up those very valuable talent points. The other thing too is Spirit Bomb is competing with Soul Cleave in the Aldrachi Reaver tree. What I mean by that is when hitting Spirit Bomb, you're completely competing with your combo from your Reaver's Glaive, and it's going to be very awkward for you to force globals. Even in a dungeon like this where there are tons and tons of mobs, and lots of little mobs too, like those menial laborers, like those kobolds, or as well at the end, all those skittering darknesses, I still find personally I don't find any value in gaining Spirit Bomb. As this boss goes down, I'm going to be going through kind of the more boring part of a tank perspective in this key, but I will be showing you exactly how to do and kind of cheat code the next pull, even though I think I messed it up in this run, but as well, I'll be showing you as well how to do the minecart in one pull. As Blazikon ends, there's nothing particularly you need other than maybe your sigils. So we're going to go into this room here. You're going to see I leap once, and I want to be in here before my team gets in here. As this first mob comes in, I do hit Shadow Meld on those first casts, as it is going to let a couple of the mobs walk in, and now I only have 2 mobs chatting on the left. Once I Sigil of Chains, I am going to hit that Elysian Decree, hit some Flame Sigils, and then silence out. If you hit Shadow Meld on the first cast of the room and nobody else is in the room, some of the mobs are just going to decide to walk forward and start a new cast on your team member. So it does help the grouping a little bit. Although it's been a little bit finicky, as I have tried it once or twice, it hasn't worked every single time. I would recommend that on this little pull as well, you just chains everything together, kick where you can, and just silence them in. It shouldn't be too much grief, but every second you can to get them quicker stacked up is going to help you on this timer a little bit. On this boss, there's nothing to do from a tank perspective that is too tricky or probably something that you haven't been used to. You will be getting the boss over to a corner and tanking him in a corner throughout the room, and this is to make sure that you have these candles stacked out. We get a laugh here at our mage as he hasn't been able to make it up on the jump, and with a big sigh of relief, I think he makes it here on this one with a body and soul. And here we go, our mage is in, I'm hitting that glaive, I'm hitting that fiery brand, I'm hitting that hunt again, but not sending my glaive, and I'm putting those sigils down. I think I do a ton of damage in this opener, which is kind of fun. Within Bloodlust, hitting pots, and kind of having a trinket proc here, I'm absolutely cranking the boss in Bloodlust, and you can see I have a pretty good time. One cool trick to note too here is that if your team ever misses their kicks, you can just use Sigil of Silence to cover a kick. So this does give you a free kick on the menu for your team, but I wouldn't recommend getting in the habit of doing it. I would just make sure that you are, if in Pug, just say, hey, I'm always kicking first on this boss, or, assigning those kicks to 2 DPS players. Having somebody on backup is super nice, and in this competition, it's obviously the Boomkin, and the mage can just cover where he needs. But in here, I'm hitting that Feldev, I'm going into meta, I'm hunting, and again, I'm just throwing that glaive off cooldown. Overall, there's not too much to talk about the Candleking. I think we had a pretty clean Candleking. I think there was maybe one hiccup here. I think we missed a candle at some point, and we do have one death on the very end of this encounter. But I think I'm just going to speed this up, because last time I talked about the Candleking, I almost fell asleep. So as we go up here, I will be skipping ahead of the Candleking and showing you what you need to do to prepare for the minecart. Now, look carefully at my buttons here, as I have Fiery Brand, I have Metamorphosis coming back in 40, of course I'll have Feldev, but I want to make sure that I have all these things available and a Reaver's Glaive when preparing this next pull. One trick I really like actually is killing off these first Skittering Darknesses before I go anywhere. This first pack of Skittering Darknesses are the mobs that are going to be alive the longest in the pull and take the longest to gather. So if you do decide you want to kill this, it is going to help you a lot, as this is going to be a lot less corpses at the end of the dungeon, and it gives you something to kind of warm up on. However, I'm out of here as I tag these things with Fire Sigil. I'm instructing my team that they're not going to hit any mobs in this corridor. I need to make sure that I tag every single mob here, as I need a threat on everything and my team's not going to be dotting. As I go ahead here, you're going to see that I use a bunch of different things to tag mobs, including the use of Fiery Brand, Feldev, and soon to be Metamorphosis. What is important here is that you do not cheat on this gather. As I'm going, I'm hitting all sides of this corridor, going left and right, and tagging every single mob with something. If I don't tag any of the mobs, they are going to run at my team and kill them, and this is going to be a disaster. So number one, when going in here, make sure you tag the mobs. Second, use your defensives early if you need to, as they're also very good threat generators. Third, make sure that you're building distance. What I mean by that is use things like your Vengeful Retreats and your Infernal Strike to get out of here and into the next pack as quick as possible. You can see that I go in here and I'm hitting this double creeper pack. I hit Metamorphosis to get myself a low stability, and I'm getting threat on all these creepers again. I now have threat on everything, and what one of my viewers did ask me was, Rai, why did you hit meta here? I mean, the honest answer is I'd rather have cheat up for a time when I think I need it, but I think that when this pack is like situated together, I don't need meta at all. Like having brand is good, but you don't really need meta. You can see right now I'm doing the loop-de-loop as I'm going up and around through these mobs. I am leaping through, I am vengeful retreating, and I am just running in circles to get all these mobs perfectly stacked up as the minecart gets through. So you can see I turn around there and I do have the entire army out to get me as I'm getting ready to deal with the hardest pull in this dungeon. All I really need here to get situated is Fiery Brands, my Flame Sigils, and a PS would be good, but I don't think I ended up getting one here. Immediately, whenever all the mobs come in, you want to make sure that you're hitting Feldev and as well, using that Fire Sigil on all these mobs. You might get Nameplate Jungle here, as all these mobs are going to be hitting you at the same time. But as you can see, once I'm situated and my Flame Sigil's down and my Fiery Brand's rolling, I'm pretty sturdy in this pull. I would recommend changing that name color of the corridor creepers to orange or something identifiable, as well as once you're in this pull, they're going to be impossible to target. Remember that anytime you're fighting the skitters, their corpses on the ground are going to mega empower the corridor creepers, so you want to kite away from them. You'll see in this pull, I'm doing kind of again a loop around the minecart and refilling my candle where I think I need it. One thing to note though is if you are tanking too close to those skitters, you are just going to cheat and die. I haven't cheated yet, and that's because I've given myself distance from where the skitters die. You see all those corpses right now on the ground to where these mobs are. You're going to see here that these corridor creepers skyrocket in size in a second as I tank too close to these critters again. And I need to make sure that I'm just absolutely out of here. Luckily, this pull goes down with me only using one pain sup, no cheat death, and I got to save meta entirely. This is amazing and very big for the program, as having meta means I can easily drag the next pull into boss and be completely fine. At this point in the dungeon, I still have not used cheat death once, and I've done every pull and every gather without error. I do Infernal Strike out of the cart stun, and I go and tag some of my creepers. I am going to be tagging 3 creepers here, and as well as many of the skitters as I can. But I do call to my team that really quickly I am going to be killing off these skitters before going into the boss. Remember, the only thing that can kill me is these corridor creepers getting too many stacks of skitters. I am checking my counts, and I realize that I'm good to go, so I have everything I need to be able to go into the boss. Once these skitters die, I'll be pulling these 4 creepers in a boss and going right after it. The one trick to note is once you pull these creepers in a boss, if this is the pull you decide on wanting to do, I would recommend that you instruct your team that you will not be picking up the candle as the tank. Once you pick up this candle, you cannot dodge or parry or hit your abilities, so you're going to be in a little bit of a Marty mess. These 4 corridor creepers are coming in, I roll my Feldev, and remember, once everything is kind of situated here, I'm going to be pretty tanky. 5 mobs is the perfect amount for Soul Cleave Vengeance Demon Hunter. So once I get that Fiery Brand rolling, my Immo Aura, and that Flame Sigil, you're going to see here that I'm very, very stable even with 4 Corridor Creepers up. This is funnel for my mage and funnel for me as aldrachi, and I'm just making sure I'm hitting the boss as my primary target. Again, I'm not scared here, and the only thing that I really need is to make sure that my healer's dispelling me. I do go up to 11 stacks here, which now I'm getting a little bit scared, but it's okay as these corridor creepers are about dead and we're about to finish the only last difficult part of this encounter as a tank. Once these corridor creeper dies, pretty much my job as a tank is over for this dungeon. There's nothing else too difficult here from a tank perspective, and I'm gonna have a really, really easy job making sure that this boss goes down. At this point, all I'm doing is hitting Hunt off CD, throwing that Reaver's Glaive combo, and dumping damage into the boss. Overall, I think this is one of the more sleeper dungeons because although this is like one of the most easiest time dungeons, it's also the dungeon I think I've seen the most tank deaths to. I think I've been through here a couple times where tanks just tried to absolutely do some wild things. They don't really respect mobs because they think it's Darkflame, and they're not hitting those important benchmarks of gathers which are helping their DPS live for threats and enabling them to live some of the more difficult pulls. When approaching this dungeon, again, take it with a grain of salt that, people are 2-chesting this place. I would really recommend just, taking your time. If you need to split up a pull or you have not built the confidence in being able to do the minecart pull in one, break it up. There's no reason you should be mimicking this video to try to build a massive success story. If you want some cool style points in that Brazil homework key, go and practice the card area in one pull, as it is going to speed up your dungeon by about 40 seconds or a minute. But overall, again, just take it slow. Practice your pulls one at a time, see where your difficulties are, see where you feel like you're messing up, and more importantly, practice your defensive usage. There's a lot of cool tricks Vengeance Demon Hunter can do in this dungeon to speed up your team and enable your DPS to do more damage, and hopefully that this video showcased a couple of them. Thanks again for all the support in the last couple videos, as my channel's really blown up here in the last little bit, especially to do with some of the VDH and the Brewmaster content. If there's anything you think I missed or anything you want to see in future videos, feel free to drop something in my comments and I'll get back to you at my best ability. As well, I do link all my runs and my talent builds in my Discord, where my UI is available for free, so if you want to come by and check that out, feel free, as I'm going to drop a description there as well. Lastly, I have been streaming about 3 or 4 days a week now on Twitch, so if you want to come stop by, say hi, or join me on my journey on my Vengeance Demon Hunter, or my Brewmaster, or my Blazikon, feel free to come pop by there too. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.